Hello friends! Today I am reviewing the Foxfire book of Appalachian Cookery, and this is the revised edition. And if you're brand new to this particular series, Foxfire was actually started as a magazine and then became a series of books. And if you're unfamiliar with the history, the introduction is going to be great for you. It talks about the first time the Foxfire book of Appalachian Cookery came out was in the 80s. And they kind of set the stage as to what it was like in the 80s. Microwave cooking was just the biggest deal, and Appalachian Cookery not really on everybody's wish list. So it kind of sets the stage for the first edition of this book. And it also goes into a little bit of the history of the Foxfire book, which was published in 1972. And it was born out of the Foxfire magazine. So I love that they go into a little bit of the history. And give credit where credit's due to the students of the Foxfire program. And immediately what you're going to be thrust into is the time. 1966 is where we're going to start, and I just love all of these old pictures. I love that they didn't try to modernize this book too much. So if you're familiar with the first books that came out, this is just gonna really call to attention the times in which they were published. And it goes into fireplace cooking, which was a very traditional way of cooking. And I love that they included that in this book. And you're going to find not only some old photographs, but also some line drawings, which are just lovely. And it includes a few pictures of the actual cooking. So a barrel used for dripping lye when making hominy. And I love how it just kind of, even if you're not going to actually cook exactly maybe how the Appalachians cooked, I love that they just included that as, kind of a historical record. And this is the section on pickles, relishes, chutneys, and sauerkraut. And the sauerkraut is one of my favorite areas here. It says sauerkraut or sauerkraut. I always say sauerkraut. Not sure where that comes from in my history. But it's got a few recipes on pickles and sauerkrauts. And then we get into chicken. And if you're a little bit squeamish, these pictures of butchering chickens might be a little bit too much for you, just to give you a little bit of warning that the pictures do get a little bit graphic. But after you get through those, then you get into the actual cooking that we might be a little more familiar with, such as just cutting up the chickens. And it's got a section on milk and butter. And if you've ever been curious how milk and butter were made before we could just pick up a tub of butter in the store, this is going to be really interesting for you. And even a section on cheese. And it's got a section on herbal tea and herbal tonics. And wild game. I think this is going to be just a section of just pure curiosity for most of us who are just wondering, what did people eat in Appalachia besides just chicken and beef? It has got a section on raccoons with some personal narratives, which it doesn't actually include some recipes that are really specific, but I do love the oral history of the wild game. And then we're going to get into cornbread, and there are just so many dishes with cornmeal, and I'm anxious to make a whole bunch of these recipes. I think cornmeal is just one of the underused foods that we deal with nowadays. And tons of pie recipes, and it's even got a recipe for pie crust. And there's blackberry and gooseberry and pumpkin and sweet potato. So tons and tons of pie recipes for your enjoyment. And the very last section I was really interested in is it lists all of the participants, the students that were involved, as well as the contacts. And I love how they didn't forget the history of the Foxfire books and the original project. So that is my review of the Foxfire book of Appalachian Cookery.